I was up and making ugly pancakes with the Crossroads cooking supplies by 7 a.m. I ate breakfast while I waited for a ride from Witch. A section of the trail was closed for a project called Fuel Reduction Operations. I did a little research, and apparently the project is run by Caltrans. It aims to reduce the chance of forest fires closing the I-5. Witch dropped me off at 8 on the Bob's Hat Trail in Castle Crags State Park. I followed this trail for approximately 2 miles to rejoin the PCT at around mile 1505. The downside of hiking down to town is you have to hike back up to get out of town. Dunsmuir was at about 2,000 feet and I had camped at 6,500 feet, but I wouldn't reach the top at 7,500 feet until the next day. Unfortunately, it was a little hazy, but the views of Castle Crags were still impressive. Looking back at what I had already climbed was also a popular pastime for the day. I stopped for a break at Gully Spring and ran into Grey Wolf, his wife, and Nate. Apparently Nate had taken a zero at Castella, a little town just outside of the park, and got a late start the next day, so I caught up. Grey Wolf and his wife only do about 10 miles a day, so I never saw them again. Nate had been there a while and I was just settling in for a water fill-up and a snack. After we caught up a little, we said our goodbyes. We were both hoping for about 25 miles. He started that morning about 4 miles ahead of where I started, so we wouldn't see each other again that first day. First thing the next day, I ran into civilization at a road to Gumboot Campground. I had dry camped the night before, so I was short on water, but there was a spring just a mile away. For the first time that I can remember, I absentmindedly stepped right over a water source when I needed it. I had another thirsty 2.5 miles to go before I could fill up. I wish I could claim I'd learned my lesson, but that would not be the last time I missed a water source accidentally. Near Deadfall Lakes, I saw a deer that was more concerned about the flies than me. I'd hiked 1,300 miles of the trail so far. Hadn't seen a single horse or bicycle on the trail yet. Not seeing a bicycle wasn't surprising since they're not allowed, but the PCT is officially an equestrian trail too. Anyway, right there on this rocky bit of trail, I found myself stuck between both. The lead rider was not happy. Horses are scared easily by bikes. The father of the family on the bikes was apologetic and claimed he didn't know they were on the PCT. But his shtick sounded a little too practiced to me. Anyway, the lead rider had the family back up and get off the trail to prevent any mishap. The family and a whole lot of other people were heading to the bigger of the two Deadfall Lakes. Far out comments indicated swimming at the lake was great. I should have stopped, but I was anxious to get some mileage. Butterflies. This was a Saturday, so I shouldn't have been surprised when I came to this packed parking lot. Adjacent to the parking lot, near a pit toilet, under the shade of trees, I sat down next to Nate and another hiker who were taking a lunch break. We got a little trail magic from a person ending their day hike with some extra food. The nuts were tasty. Nate and I hiked the rest of the day together. I wanted to stay with Nate, so I did my biggest day yet. I cracked 30 miles. Unfortunately, Nate also wanted to get 30, so when I stopped, he kept going. Next morning, I packed up before breakfast so I could enjoy a fancy campground. Scott Mountain Campground had picnic tables, water, and a pit toilet. I prepared breakfast at a vacant site adjacent to a couple of honeymooning van dwellers. They had only been married a couple of days and were still working out the kinks of van life. While I was enjoying breakfast, a nearby chipmunk was enjoying his. I think his was better. While I hung out with Nate the day before, he told me he went swimming in one of the Deadfall Lakes. I was suffering from FOMO, so when I passed this tub-sized pool, I cooled off and cleaned up a little. The morning's campground was a low spot for the day. I'd climb up to 7,400 feet to get a little snow that worried me at a distance, but up close it wasn't bad. Red Rock alpine areas are so cool looking. I ran into Nate again and hiked the rest of the way to Etna Summit together. We crossed a slope which would make a great ski resort. I got another big day, 29 miles. We camped on and near an abandoned dirt road. I took off early to take advantage of the natural facilities while Nate packed up. We'd hiked just 14 miles to a road crossing at Etna Summit where we could get a ride to town of Etna. I knew from the 56-mile stretch of the PCT that I hiked with the Boy Scouts in 2020 that we were entering some burn zone, but it wasn't bad. I don't think I'd seen a stretch so long with zero uphill. The views were good as we descended to the summit road. The most impressive bit was a stretch of cobblestone trail. I can't imagine being on the trail crew that did that work. At the same parking lot where our Boy Scout leaders stashed our cars in 2020, we found school buses. A school had been doing a summer program and was just wrapping up. We tried hitching, but the only vehicle that came by was a truck that swerved way to the other side of the road to ensure we knew he was not interested in helping. After a while, I used my inReach to contact a lady named Molly who gave white-knuckled rides to and from Etna. She was there in no time and the ride was not disappointing. I think I was told she was an octogenarian. She believed the center line was at best a suggestion. She enjoyed making her passengers nervous. When we got to town, she gave us a tour before dropping us off at Dottie's. She showed us the resupply spots, the brewing company, the bakery, the post office, and the fancy Collier Hotel. The hotel was across the street from a warehouse that smelled like bat guano on hot days, and it was a hot day. She made it a point to stress that camping in the town park was free and that the town swimming pool was open and had showers. Dottie's was a little diner with an outdoor eating area. I imagine its waitresses wore roller skates in a bygone era. The food was great. I think we both got burgers, but the milkshakes is what we were there for. After lunch, we split up. Nate was going to the park and I had reservations at the Bluebird. We were going to meet up later at the brewery for dinner. The Bluebird was interesting. I stayed in the inexpensive bunkhouse, but there were rooms in the inn proper. Molly told us that the inn and the nearby farmhouse bakery had the same owner. The mission of the businesses were to aid men in some sort of recovery. She didn't go into details, and I couldn't find anything about it online. A stay at the Bluebird comes with breakfast. Since I was staying on a Monday night, I had to get my breakfast at the bakery the next day. I got to the inn a little early, so it was difficult to find someone to get access to the bunkhouse. When I did, I found there were already 3 people staying there. One of them was a woman convalescing from an injury. She was expecting to stay a total of 2 weeks. The bunkhouse had a kitchen sink, little washing machine, clotheslines, and a shower. So I did all my town chores right there. And as I did, hikers rolled in. Every bunk was eventually taken. After I was cleaned up, I meandered down to the brewery. Most everyone from the bunkhouse showed up, as well as people from the park. It was a great time. I met a guy named Pina that I would run into on and off all the way to Canada. He had hiked with Eldorado through the Sierras. I should get into the myths surrounding this group in one of these videos eventually. Julie would arrive early the next day, so I couldn't stay out too late. I said goodnight to Nate and wandered through the sleepy town back to the Bluebird. Trail stop checklist. Etna, check.